Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome, dear students. Okay, the course is Fundamentals of Public Administration. The code is 406. Okay, before we move on to the next lecture, let us have a review that what we have discussed in our previous lecture. Okay, in our previous lecture, we have talked about different articles of the Constitution of Pakistan 1973. So do you remember those articles that we have discussed in our previous lecture? Okay, we have talked in our previous lecture about different articles of the Constitution of the Pakistan 1973. We have talked about freedom of speech, like for example, what are the different rules and regulations regarding freedom of speech in Pakistan. So we have full right of our freedom of speech in Pakistan. We can talk about anything, and we can express our emotions, we can express our feelings, and we can express our point of view. So that is as per the Constitution of Pakistan. But at the same time, Constitution of Pakistan 1973 gives certain guidelines, like for example regarding freedom of speech, like for example our freedom of speech should be according to the boundaries of our religion Islam, number one thing. Secondly, our freedom of speech should not harm others. So when we talk about should not harm others, what do we mean by others here? Now other here means that, like for example, there are different persons who are not working in your organization, or there are persons outside your country. So when we talk about our foreign countries, when we talk about the people of Pakistan, so we should not say something that hurts them. So we should not say something that is against their culture. So we need to be highly careful about our speech. So ये बिल्कुल ऐन इस्लामी बात है कि हमारा जो इखलाक है, हमारी जो स्पीच है, उससे किसी मुस्लिम या नॉन मुस्लिम कोई भी इंसान इस दुनिया में हर्ट ना हो. सो दिस इज़ रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच की बात की. इसके अलावा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के जो एक और आर्टिकल की हमने बात की हमने प्रीवियस लेक्चर में, दैट वाज अबाउट वी कैन फॉर्म यूनियंस. Like for example, in any organization, when we talk about the public sector of Pakistan, in any organization, what happens that employees and top management, they have certain issues or they have certain problems. Now conflict is a natural phenomena, जो कि हम पहले डिटेल में बात कर चुके हैं previous lecture में, कि having a conflict in any organization is a natural thing. So people who are working together, they always have some conflicts. Now it is the responsibility of a good administrator कि उस conflict को वो positive conflict की तरफ लेके जाए, ना कि वो negative conflict की तरफ जाए. Positive conflict से ये मुराद है कि एक positive constructive criticism. तो हम जैसे बात करते हैं कि 1 + 1 = 11. Now 11 means that when two persons they are working in a team, they give a better result. और अगर ये दोनों लोग individual काम करेंगे तो 1 + 1 = 2. But अगर ये दोनों लोग as a team member better perform करेंगे, so it means that may result in 11. So we call it synergy. And synergy here means that when the total is higher than the individual effort. So we have talked about forming unions. So people of Pakistan, they have full right. They can form unions in their organizations. Now we have talked about the functioning of unions in our offices. We have talked about different functions of union. We have talked about in our previous lecture about how the issues or the problems are solved with the help of unions and top management. We have also talked about win-win strategy. We have talked about win-win strategy, and I have already given you a few examples. I'll repeat one example here. Like for example, in any situation, the employees, they have certain problems, they have certain issues. Like for example, that issue is relevant to their rights, that issue is relevant to their bonuses, that issue is relevant to any other matter. On the other side, the top management, they have also certain concerns, like for example, employee productivity, employee performance issues, employee different efficiency or effectiveness issues. Now, both of these parties, union and top management, they sit together and then they try to come up to a mutual conclusion. and that mutual conclusion is only possible with the help of win-win strategy. Now in win-win strategy, what happens that the union, they are able to convince the top management कि जो मुतालबात वो यूनियन लेके आई है, जो एम्प्लॉइज़ की तरफ से वो लेके आई है यूनियन मुतालबात, उन मुतालबात में से कुछ मुतालबात को या मे बी इन सम केसेस तमाम मुतालबात को टॉप मैनेजमेंट उनके साथ एग्री कर जाती है, या अगर कुछ मामलात के साथ एग्री नहीं भी करती है और कुछ मामलात के साथ एग्री भी करती है, तो जिन मामलात के साथ एग्री नहीं करती उसके लिए एक प्रोसीजर तय कर लिया जाता है कि ग्रेजुअली इन मामलात को तरह सॉल्व किया जाएगा. तो वन थिंग ऑन द अदर साइड, टॉप मैनेजमेंट के जो कंसर्न्स हैं उन कंसर्न्स को जो है वो डिस्कस किया जाता है यूनियन के साथ, और यूनियन उसको गारंटी देती है, उनको श्योरिटी देती है टॉप मैनेजमेंट को कि हम अपनी परफॉर्मेंस को, या अगर और कोई मसला प्रॉब्लम या कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है उसको वो सॉल्व करने की वहाँ पे तरीक़ेकार तय कर लेते हैं. तो इस तरह से व्हेन द टॉप मैनेजमेंट गोज बैक, व्हेन द टॉप मैनेजमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव दे रिटर्न टू देयर ऑफिसेस, तो वो टॉप मैनेजमेंट को ये कम्युनिकेट करते हैं कि हमारे जो कंसर्न्स थे वो हमने सॉल्व करवा लिए हैं. ऑन दी अदर साइड, जब यूनियन अपने एम्प्लॉइज़ के पास वापस जाती है तो यूनियन अपने एम्प्लॉइज़ को ये बताती है कि वी आर एबल टू कन्विंस द टॉप मैनेजमेंट, और आपके जो मुतालबात हैं वो हमने उनको कन्विंस किया है एंड दे हैव एग्रीड. सो बोथ द पार्टीज आर हैप्पी एंड दैट इज़ व्हाई इट इज़ कॉल्ड विन-विन स्ट्रेटजी. We have also talked about freedom of assembly. Like for example, in our previous lecture, we have talked about that the people of Pakistan, the citizens of Pakistan can assemble anywhere, anytime. So there is no restriction on like कि people अगर एक जगह पाकिस्तान के लोग एक जगह इकट्ठे होके कोई डिबेट्स करना चाहें, कोई डिस्कशन करना चाहें, कुछ एक्सप्रेस करना चाहें, तो उसको उसकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 जो है उसकी पूरी इजाज़त देता है. लेकिन यहाँ पे दो कंडीशंस जो हैं उनको यहाँ पे अप्लाई किया गया है. द फर्स्ट वन इज़ कि द असेंबली ऑफ पीपल शुड बी पीसफुल. नाउ अगर लोग इकट्ठे होते हैं किसी भी जगह पे किसी भी टाइम पे, और अगर वो पीस के अगेंस्ट होता है, अगर वो पाकिस्तान के कुछ इलाकों में या पाकिस्तान में किसी भी जगह पे कोई प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करता है, पीस को वायलेट करता है, दैट इज़ नॉट अलाउड अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973. द नेक्स्ट कंडीशन जो कि यहाँ पे अप्लाई की गई है, जो गाइडलाइन दी गई है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 में टू द पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान, they should carry no arms. So we can assemble anywhere, we can talk about anything, we can express our feelings, but those जो get together है, जो आप एक जगह इकट्ठे हो रहे हैं, जो एक जगह पीसफुल आपकी असेंबली है, वहाँ पे वो विदाउट आर्म्स जो है उसको यहाँ पे गाइडलाइंस दी गई हैं कि विद आर्म्स जो हैं या असलहा के साथ या ऐसे एमुनिशन के साथ या किसी ऐसी चीज़ के साथ जिसकी मदद से कोई ना कोई टेररिज्म या कोई ना कोई पीस को ख़तरा हो सकता है, तो एमुनिशन और आर्म्स जो हैं उनको अलाउ नहीं किया गया. सो हमने अपने प्रीवियस लेक्चर में डिफरेंट आर्टिकल्स की बात की. सो आज हम वो आर्टिकल्स जो हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 के मुताबिक हम उसको कैरी ऑन करते हैं. द नेक्स्ट वन इज़ it says that safeguard against taxation for purposes of any particular religion. Now, no person in Pakistan shall be compelled to pay any special tax, the proceeds of which are to be spent on the spread or maintenance of any religion other than his own. Now, when you look at this slide, you see that कि आप अपने रिलीजन के अलावा, जैसे हम यहाँ बात करते हैं कि दीन इस्लाम के अलावा किसी और रिलीजन के लिए आपसे किसी किस्म का टैक्स आप पे इम्पोज नहीं किया जा सकता, और कोई भी पाकिस्तान में जो सिटीजन्स हैं उनसे किसी किस्म का कोई टैक्स या कोई फ़ी या इस किस्म की जो सिमिलर किस्म की जो टैक्सेशन है वो चार्ज नहीं की जा सकती other than their own religion. The next article we talk about in the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan 1973 is about safeguard as to educational institution in respect of religion, etc. So no person attending any educational institution shall be required to receive religious instruction or take part in any religious ceremony or attend religious worship if such instruction, ceremony of worship relates to a religion other than his own. Now you see that कि किसी भी तालीमी इदारे में कोई भी ऐसी सेरेमनी या कोई भी ऐसी एक्टिविटी अरेंज नहीं की जा सकती जो कि अदर दैन इस्लाम हो। कि जब हम इस्लामी जमहूरिया पाकिस्तान की बात कर रहे हैं तो दीन इस्लाम के अलावा किसी और रिलीजन के बारे में कोई एक्टिविटी, कोई सेरेमनी जो है इन पब्लिक सेक्टर की जब हम बात कर रहे हैं तो अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान वो अरेंज नहीं की जा सकती। और वहाँ पे जो वहाँ पे एम्प्लॉयज़ काम कर रहे हैं, जो सिटीज़न ऑफ पाकिस्तान वहाँ पे सर्व कर रहे हैं, या जो वहाँ पे स्टूडेंट्स वहाँ पे स्टडी कर रहे हैं, तो उनको ये चीज़ क्लियर करता है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 के अदर देन दीन इस्लाम किसी और डिफरेंट मज़हब की किसी तरह की एक्टिविटी की इजाज़त जो है वो इदारों में नहीं है। द नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ Islamic Republic of Pakistan 1973 is about equality of citizens. Now, what do we mean by equality of citizens? According to this article, it means that all citizens are equal before law and are entitled to equal protection of law. Now, this article says that कानून के लिए सब बराबर हैं और दे आर इंटाइटल्ड टू इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ। तो ना सिर्फ ये कि कानून सबके लिए बराबर है, इसके साथ साथ कानून सबको इक्वली प्रोटेक्ट भी करता है। सो कोई यहाँ पे अमीर गरीब हमें यहाँ पे उसके लिए डिफरेंट कानून नहीं है। किसी के डेजिग्नेशन से, किसी के ओहदे से, किसी के पैसा से, किसी भी बुनियाद पर जो है वो कानून जो है वो फ़र्क नहीं है। और तमाम लोगों के लिए जो पाकिस्तानी सिटीजन्स हैं, पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान हैं, उन सब के लिए कानून एक है और जो कानून है वो सबको इक्वली प्रोटेक्ट करता है विदाउट एनी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। The next point in this article of equality of citizens says that there shall be no discrimination based on gender. Now this article is very clear about non-discrimination. Now it says that कि किसी भी इदारे में, किसी भी जगह पे जेंडर बेसिस पे, लाइक यहाँ पे हम बात करते हैं मेल फीमेल बेसिस पे, कि कोई फेवरेटिज्म नहीं होगा, कोई लाइकिंग या डिसलाइकिंग नहीं अलाउ है कि आप मेल्स को ज़्यादा जो है वो फेवर कर रहे हैं या फीमेल्स को ज़्यादा फेवर कर रहे हैं। तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 इस चीज़ को इंश्योर करता है कि किसी तरह की भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन बेस्ड ऑन जेंडर, मेल फीमेल की बुनियाद पर किसी किस्म की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की पाकिस्तान के किसी भी इदारे में उसकी हरगिज़ इजाज़त नहीं है। और अगर कोई उसकी वायलेशन करता है तो ऑफ कोर्स दैट इज़ the violation of this constitution and that is against the law. The next point in this equality of citizen article is about nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the protection of women and children. नाउ अगेन ये आर्टिकल जो है ये इस चीज़ को इंश्योर करता है रिगार्डिंग इक्वालिटी ऑफ सिटीजन्स के जो स्टेट है वो प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ विमेन और चिल्ड्रन के लिए जो है वो बेहतरीन कानून साजी करेगी और वो इस चीज़ को इंश्योर करेगी जो भी स्टेट या गवर्नमेंट उस वक्त एट प्रेजेंट है, इट इज़ देयर बेसिक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कि वो प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ विमेन एंड चिल्ड्रन के लिए ख़ास एक कानून लेके आएगी ताकि विमेन के लिए और चिल्ड्रन के लिए जो है वो बेनिफिशियल हो, उनके राइट्स को प्रोटेक्ट करे और किसी तरह की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन जो है वो चिल्ड्रन को और विमेन को पाकिस्तान में फेस ना करनी पड़े। सो ओवरऑल जब हम बात करते हैं इक्वालिटी ऑफ सिटीजन्स की तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ द इस्लामिक रिपब्लिक ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1973 एंश्योर्स दैट कि तमाम शहरी कानून की नज़र में बराबर हैं, कानून सबकी एक ही तरह से उनको प्रोटेक्ट करता है और किसी तरह की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की पाकिस्तान में इजाज़त नहीं है। और बच्चों के लिए और ख़वातीन के लिए जो है वो ये स्टेट की जिम्मेदारी है कि वो कानून साजी करे और उनके लिए, उनको प्रोटेक्शन के लिए और ताकि किसी किस्म की भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ना की जा सके। The next article in this Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan 1973 is regarding non-discrimination in respect of access to public places. Now, as this article says that in respect of access to places of public entertainment or resort not intended for religious purposes only, there shall be no discrimination against any citizen on the ground only of race, religion, caste, gender, residence or place of birth. Now this article says clearly that there should be no discrimination in respect of access to public places. तो public places में जाने की सबको इजाज़त है. Now this is really very important कि जेंडर की बुनियाद पे, किसी रिलीजन की बुनियाद पे, किसी रेस की बुनियाद पे, किसी कास्ट की बुनियाद पे, या रेजिडेंस और प्लेस ऑफ बर्थ की बुनियाद पे किसी तरह की किसी पाकिस्तानी सिटीजन्स के ऊपर किसी तरह की रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है. सो पाकिस्तानीज कैन मूव ऑन to any place, they can have access to any public place. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान जो है 1973 इस चीज़ की यहाँ पे आपको राइट्स देता है कि यू कैन हैव एक्सेस टू पब्लिक प्लेसेस इन पाकिस्तान एज ए सिटीजन ऑफ पाकिस्तान. Okay, after discussing the different articles of the Constitution of Pakistan 1973, now we move on to the next topic, that is factors affecting public agencies. Now when we talk about different factors that affect public agencies, we say that the way democracy functions in the political tradition of a country have important influence on the working of public organization. Like following factors affect public administration in Pakistan. Now these factors are international, social, economic and political system influence. Now we'll discuss these factors one by one. So international, like talking about international factors. Now how the international factors are affecting public administration in Pakistan. Of course, and now the world is a global village. When we talk about this world, we say that it's a global village. Now global village means what? It means that whatever you are doing in Pakistan, it has an influence on the other countries, and whatever the other countries are doing in their country, whatever they are doing, it has an influence on Pakistan. Now it's a global village, so everybody doing anything in the world that has an influence on others. Like for example, when we talk about business, when we talk about products, when we talk about anything, so that has an influence. So and of course public administration is not an exception here. Now दुनिया में क्या कानून बन रहे हैं, दुनिया में मुख्तलिफ जो पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के अंदर क्या चेंजेस आ रही हैं, इस वक्त हमारे जो नेबर कंट्रीज़ हैं वहाँ पे किस किस्म की पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, एडवांस कंट्रीज़ के अंदर किस तरह की पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है. सो डेफिनेटली हम उसको इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि वो जो इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे जितनी भी चेंजेस हो रही हैं, जितनी भी रैपिड चेंजेस हो रही हैं, उनको डेफिनेटली देखने की ज़रूरत है, उसको ऑब्जर्व करने की ज़रूरत है. और पाकिस्तान को डेफिनेटली यहाँ पे ज़रूरत है कि जो हमारे यहाँ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के अंदर डिफरेंट जो फंक्शंस हैं और जो जितने हमारे लॉज हैं और जो भी हमारे फंक्शंस हैं और जो हमारे वर्किंग मेथड्स हैं, उनको एज़ पर वंडरफुल जो बेंचमार्क्स हैं, इंटरनेशनल प्रैक्टिसेस हैं, उसके मुताबिक हम उसको लेके आएँ. बल्कि यहाँ पे मैं ऐड करूँगा कि why not we do something better than others, why not we set our own benchmarks, कि एज ए पाकिस्तानी वी फील दैट कि हम पाकिस्तान के लिए कुछ ऐसा करें जो आज तक किसी ने नहीं किया. तो वो तभी मुमकिन है कि जब हम अपने एटीट्यूड को, अपने बिहेवियर को एक एक्सट्रीम पॉजिटिव साइड पे लेके जाएं. एंड व्हेन वी हैव ए पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड, व्हेन वी हैव ए पॉजिटिव बिहेवियर, सो ऑफ कोर्स नो हर्डल कैन stop us. There are no constraints, or definitely we are able to set our benchmarks. We are able to set the highest standards in the world, and of course, so we can of course look at others, of course in beginning, but of course I believe that if we bring positive changes in our working methods, if we bring positive changes in our existing ways of working, so of course we can improve our performance. And inshallah the day will come very soon when we set the benchmarks and others will follow us. Now talking about the social factors that affect public administration, of course in Pakistan, of course when we talk about public administration, of course our society social values, that has a very strong impact on the public administration. When we talk about social values, of course culture is the most important factor. So in culture we talk about religion, we talk about norms, we talk about values, we talk about ethics. So these things are covered under the umbrella of culture. So when we talk about the impact of social values on public administration. This is really very important, that before making any rules and regulations in our organization, we need to see that what are the social values, how those social values can help to improve different functions of public administration. Because as a citizen of Pakistan, I think this is really very important that our public administration should be according to the ground reality, and that ground reality is our social value. So we cannot ignore the people of Pakistan while making rules, while making different objectives, while making different targets of our public administration, while performing different functions of our public administration. This is really very important that we need to make it, first of all, we need to see that what others are doing, so it's a global village. Then we need to look at our social values. And the next point is economics. Now, economics is really very important here. Now, what we need here, we need to have a strong economy in Pakistan. So we need to see the economics of Pakistan. We need to see the economics of the world. We need to see that कि पूरी दुनिया में हमारी economy जो है वो किस तरफ को जा रही है. Like we have seen the financial recession. We have seen कि किस तरह से बड़े-बड़े businesses जो हैं वो decline की तरफ गए. So we have seen the investment bubbles. We have seen the stock exchange positions in Pakistan and abroad. So this is really very important कि जब हम public administration की बात करते हैं, तो in order to bring improvements in the existing rules and regulations in public administration, this is really very important कि जो economy है, पूरी दुनिया की economy, and particularly talking about the economy of Pakistan, this is really very important कि हम उसको आपस में link up करें, और हमारे जो rules and regulations हैं, that should be according to the changing scenario in Pakistan, particularly talking about the economy. And finally, we talk about the political system influence on public administration. Again, politics, of course, that has a very strong influence on public administration, because like for example, people who are making the rules, people who are making the decisions at top level in any government. So this is really very important that there is a political influence, because there are different political parties in Pakistan. So those parties are responsible, like who come in government, who come in power. So they are responsible for making rules and regulations. So of course, the decision makers of different political parties, when they come in power, when they come in government, they bring certain changes in the existing rules and regulations of doing business, or like how to run government or public sector organizations in Pakistan, or even the private sector of Pakistan. So they do that rule making thing. So of course, when we talk about decision makers, and the decision makers are from the political parties, so definitely that has a strong impact on the public administration in Pakistan. Now, moving on towards evolution of public administration, one of the definitions of public administration is that public administration is about management of public programs. And as we have learned that during the period of Indus Valley civilization, cities were well constructed and planned, and that the practice of public administration is old, but as a subject it is new. So when we see the practices of public administration, it is really very old. In our earlier lectures, we have talked about Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. We have talked about Egyptian pyramids. We have talked about China Wall. So public administration practices are really very old, like human civilization. But as a subject, public administration is new. We would now see the development of this practice as a subject. So let's have a look on this slide, please. Now the evolution of public administration is divided in following schools. Now these are the different schools of thoughts when we talk about public administration evolution. And these are, the first one is the classical school, the next is the human relation school, then we have the behavioral school, then we have the system school, then we have the management science school, and finally we have the power and politics school. Now we start from the classical school. Now it says that we will examine the work of classical school and see the theory presented by the school. Now we will review the work of the main contributors of this classical school, and these contributors of this classical school are Woodrow Wilson, Leonard D. White, W.F. Willoughby, Frederick Winslow Taylor, Henry L. Gantt, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, Max Weber, and Henry Fayol. Okay, now we are going to talk about the first contributor of classical school, and that is Woodrow Wilson. Now we talk about Woodrow Wilson. The first essay was on the study of administration, 1887, written by Woodrow Wilson. He was an American scholar and late president of USA. His essay was of very practical nature. In his essay, he pointed out following things. In his essay on the study of administration, Woodrow Wilson addressed the inefficiency and corruption in USA government in late 1880s. He said that political scientists had given little attention to how government should operate. So it means that Woodrow Wilson talked about the inefficiency of the political scientists in his study of administration. So in his essay, he has talked about the inefficiency of the political scientists who were unable to draw like different responsibilities, who were unable to define those correct working methods, and of course that resulted in corruption in the USA government when we talk about the period 1880s. The next he talked about he was impressed by the business, industry and technology. Of course, at that time, Woodrow Wilson, he talked about the significance and of course the importance of business, industry and technology. That shows that he was fully aware and he was impressed by these different sectors. Then Woodrow Wilson believed that the work of government should be accomplished with the efficiency of private sector. Now you see that this is really a wonderful point here. Of course, public sector and private sector, they both, if they work together in partnership or if they work like in different areas, that is good for the economy of any country. And here talking about USA, Woodrow Wilson suggested that government can improve their work. Government can bring improvement in the performance of their employees with the efficiency of private sector. So Woodrow Wilson emphasized on the importance and significance of private sector. And then he believed that there should be separation of politics from administration. Now Woodrow Wilson was against politics. So he said that politics should not be there in the public administration. So he emphasized in his article, in his essay on the study of administration in 1887, that politics should not be there in administration. Now, why he talked about separation of politics from administration? Now here we need to discuss this point. This point is really very important. Like for example, when we have a political influence, it means that liking or disliking factor may come in administration, and when personal liking or disliking factors are there, so definitely when you are making different decisions, when you are making different rules and regulations or making laws, so of course if you have already developed a mindset, if you have certain liking or dislikings, so of course that can create problem in the public sector. So this is a good suggestion that he has given there, that in his article, in his essay on the study of administration written in 1887, that the politics should not be mixed up with administration, and administration should be free from any kind of politics. Now talking about the next contributor of classical school of thought, and he is Leonard D. White. Now another article that appeared was on Introduction to the Study of Public Administration in 1926 by Leonard D. White. So in his paper, he commented that government should function in the context of democratic values. Now here he is talking about the role of state in human affairs. So he emphasized in his article that the government should follow the democratic values. Now this is really very important, and when we talk about democratic values, of course we talk about the people empowerment, we talk about people rights, we talk about non-discrimination, we talk about ethics, we talk about economy. So we talked about the involvement of people in decision making. We talk about giving people of that particular country their rights. So Leonard D. White emphasized that any government, they should function in the context of democratic values, and of course state is responsible, they have a role in order to provide best services to its people. The next thing is, according to him, there are two concerns in public administration. The first is efficiency. Now, efficiency to improve the functioning of organization. So what do we mean by efficiency? Now, efficiency means that with the minimum input, we try to get the maximum output. Now, Leonard D. White, he emphasized on efficiency, and of course efficiency in any organization means that you are using less resources as an input and your output is higher than your input. So of course when your input is less and when your output is more, so when you are you're producing more, your production is high, your output is higher than your input, it means the organization is going in profit, and that is good for the organization. And the next point is discussed here regarding public administration is democratic values, that the organization should keep in view the democratic values when providing services. So again he re-emphasized, as we have earlier talked about democratic values, that Leonard D. White re-emphasized that the organizations, they should follow the democratic values when providing services. So there should be no discrimination regarding gender, caste, race, or place of birth. So there should be no personal liking or disliking, and democratic values must be followed in any organization according to Leonard D. White. Okay, the next contributor in this classical school is W.F. Willoughby. Now, W.F. Willoughby, in his article Principles of Public Administration 1927, emphasized the idea of value-free science of management. So by value-free science of management, he meant that those executing public programs should be neutral, unbiased, and provide services without discrimination. Now you see that the beauty of his article on the principles of public administration, written in 1927, he emphasized on really a wonderful area, and that is the people who are executing public programs should be unbiased. So when we talk about people who are responsible for the execution of any programs in the public sector, they should be unbiased. Now unbiased here means that they should have no discrimination. So like for example, their decisions are neutral, they have no personal liking or disliking, they are providing equal services to all, they are following the democratic values, they are giving rights to people without any discrimination, and then they have no discrimination regarding gender, caste, and things like that. So this is really very important according to W.F. Willoughby, that the people who are responsible for the implementation, the people who are the executors, the people who implement different policies, different laws in the country, so they should be unbiased and they should be neutral and they should have no discrimination regarding anything. So in this way we can improve performance in the public sector. Okay. The next contributor when we talk about the classical school is F.W. Taylor. Now Frederick Winslow Taylor is also called the father of scientific management. So by saying this thing, now you know that F.W. Taylor is one of the most wonderful contributors when we talk about this classical school of thought. And he worked as machine operator in Midway Steel Company in USA. He performed shoveling experiment. So let us have a look that on this slide that what were the results of shoveling experiment. Okay, the first thing is what he explored with the help of this experiment. F.W. Taylor, he explored that there is scientific way of doing things, and he called it one best way. So most popular thing we study in our books is there is always a one best way. So F.W. Taylor, he emphasized that there is always a one best way of doing things. So of course, when we observe different methods of working, so after observing different methods of working, we come up to a certain conclusion that there are certain ways which are better than others. Like for example, if you are working as a machine operator, now you use different methods. If you use different methods, every method can give you different results, or maybe it use different timings. It use, like when we talk about timings, meaning that it takes, some of the methods they take less time, some methods they take more time, some methods they take more energy, some methods they take less energy. Now, by keeping in mind all of these factors and other factors relevant to it, F.W. Taylor with the help of shoveling experiment proved that there is always a one best way of doing things. So he replaced rule of thumb with science. So when we हम ये कहते हैं कि जैसे हम उर्दू में कहते हैं कि like एक मक्खी पे मक्खी मारना, कि आपने एक तरीका तय कर लिया कि कोई भी काम करने का एक तरीका है, अब हमेशा उसी तरीके का आप फॉलो करते हैं. यहाँ प्रॉब्लम ये हो जाती है कि जब if you keep on doing same things every day, you will keep on getting same results every time. तो अगर तो रूल ऑफ थंब को हम यूज करेंगे तो डेफिनेटली रिजल्ट्स भी वही आएंगे जो हमेशा आते हैं. बल्कि यहाँ पे मैं ऐड करना चाहूँगा कि अगर हम रूल ऑफ थंब यूज करेंगे तो न सिर्फ ये कि रिजल्ट सेम आएंगे, बल्कि विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम रिजल्ट बुरे आना शुरू हो जाएंगे, डिक्लाइन की तरफ चले जाएंगे, क्योंकि मार्केट के अंदर कंपटीशन इंक्रीज हो रहा है. इस वक्त जो है हमारा जो कस्टमर है, इस वक्त जो हमारा क्लाइंट है, इस वक्त जिन लोगों के लिए हम अपनी सर्विसेज दे रहे हैं, प्रोडक्ट्स प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, दे हैव ए हाई अवेयरनेस लेवल. सो इवन ये जो हमारी जो वे ऑफ वर्किंग है, इसके अंदर हमने इंप्रूवमेंट लेके आनी है, और रूल ऑफ थंब जो है उसको छोड़ने की जरूरत है. और एफ.डब्ल्यू. टेलर ने यहीं पे इस चीज को एम्फसाइज किया है कि ही रिप्लेस द रूल ऑफ थंब विद साइंस एंड ऑब्टेन हार्मनी इन ग्रुप एक्शन रादर देन डिसएग्रीमेंट. सो एफ.डब्ल्यू. टेलर टॉक्ड अबाउट हार्मनी. नाउ हार्मनी मीन्स दैट there are different employees, there are different groups, there are different persons having different cultures, different religions, different place of birth, different have different perceptions. So male, female, they belong to different areas. So when they work together, it is of course really very tough that they should develop strong relations. But F.W. Taylor here emphasized that if we bring harmony, if we strengthen the relationship of a highly diversified group, if we have bring positive changes in our relationships, so in this way we can improve performance of an organization, and that is only possible if we try to minimize or eliminate the disagreements. So F.W. Taylor talked about conflict management. Okay, we can identify conflicts, we can manage conflicts, and of course the result is of course a better harmony among different groups working in the organization. Then F.W. Taylor talked about achieving cooperation of human beings rather than individualism. Now here F.W. Taylor, he focused on the cooperation of human beings rather than individualism. Now, as I earlier told you that 1 plus 1 is equal to, what comes in your mind? 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Okay, it could be 2. 1 plus 1 is equal to 11. So it could be 11. So how it comes to 11 and how it comes to 2? Like for example, 2 persons are working individually. The total is 2. But if those 2 persons are working in a team, the result may be 11. So when we are working in a team, Of course, the sum is higher than when we are working as an individual. So F.W. Taylor emphasized on teamwork and cooperation instead of individualism. Next result of Chauvelin experiment, according to F.W. Taylor, was working for maximum output rather than restricted output. Now, before F.W. Taylor Chauvelin experiments, people were like, they have a fixed output in their minds. Like, for example, they perform different activities and they have a certain target, and then they fix that target. But according to F.W. Taylor, the organization should try to achieve the maximum output rather than restricted output. So in order to achieve the maximum output, what is required? Of course, in order to have the maximum output, in order to have an output better than your competitors, what is needed is you need to have the best intellectual capital. And the best intellectual capital means what? It means the best human brains. Now, best human brains are only possible if we have the best human resources with us. And that is only possible if we train and develop our employees. And that is only possible if we provide them appropriate financial and non-financial rewards. So when our employees, they have better motivation, when our employees are happy, when our employees are comfortable, they become loyal. And when our employees become loyal, the result is, of course, maximum output. So everybody in the organization who is a loyal employee will do his or her best level to bring improvements in his working. So in this way, we can move towards maximum output instead of restricted output. The next point is developing all workers to the fullest extent for their own and company's prosperity. Now, how we can do this thing? Now, F.W. Taylor, through his Chauvelin experiment, this was one of the results, that we need to develop our people. And once we develop our peoples, that results in companies' prosperity. Now, developing people, of course, that needs to have a systematic approach. Like, for example, as we earlier discussed about importance of training and development. Now, we need to train our new employees, we need to train our existing employees or old employees, and then we need to develop our existing employees and or new employees. So how we can do this thing? Like, for example, when any organization joins, when any employee or when join any organization, when any organization they hire new employees, they must go through an orientation program. Now, that orientation program, what is happening in the most advanced country is that in their employee orientation program, they send the new employee to different departments. Normally, they send newly hired employee to all the departments of that particular organization. The new employee is required to study and to understand the functioning of all departments in his or her organization. And after having a visit of all organization, and that visit is normally that could take few weeks to few months. So after a detailed orientation of the organization, that new employee is then given his key responsibilities to perform. So when the new employee start performing his new responsibilities, so after orientation, of course, his mindset is like there are positive changes. There are positive changes in his or her attitude and behavior. He has high awareness level about the organization. He knows that what other departments are doing in the same organization. So he knows about the other people as well who are working in the same organization. So by knowing other people, by knowing what others are doing, that improves his performance. So this is really very important. So we can develop our employees with the help of different training methods. Like, for example, we can use presentation methods, we can use case study methods, we can use role-playing methods, we can use simulation methods. So these are the different training methods employers can use to develop their employees. And when we talk about training and development, training here means that learning existing job skill requirement. So I repeat, training here means that learning existing job skill requirement, and by development we mean that learning future job skill requirement. So we need not only to develop our employees, we need to train our employees as well. So here I will add here that first we need to train our employees, and then we need to develop our employees. So development is a long-term thing and training is a short-term phenomena. Okay. And of course, these training and development, they are highly interrelated. And final point in the result of shoveling experiment performed by F.W. Taylor is workers should be carefully selected. Now you see that right person for the right job. As in the first result, the F.W. Taylor emphasized that there is one best way. So in the last finding is workers should be carefully selected. So here that one best way could be hiring the right persons. So right person for the right job at the right time is required here. So according to F.W. Taylor, organizations should be careful when they do that recruitment and selection. Now, how we do that good recruitment and selection? There are few things we need to talk about. Like for example, we should have a very strong human resource planning. Now, organizations who do not have strong human resource planning, they are not good in hiring people. Like for example, what do we mean by human resource planning here? Now, human resource planning means that we need to hire people according to our needs, according to needs in different departments, according to different needs of the organization. Like for example, what is going on in the market, okay, what is required, what are the competencies required, what could be the job responsibilities, what should be the eligibility criteria of hiring. These things are to be done by human resource planning umbrella. And then we talk about, after human resource planning, we talk about recruitment and selection. Now in recruitment and selection, what we do is we advertise the position, and then we conduct different tests, and then we conduct different interviews. Based on those test and interview, then we hire the best person. So there is some reference check or background check, and then of course after recruitment and selection, that employee is sent for orientation sessions that we have already talked about. And in those orientation sessions, the employee is given the chance to understand the functioning of different departments. The new employee is given the chance to meet the new people, and then of course the result is high awareness and better relations with other people working in the same organization. So overall, when we look at this slide, you see that this is really a wonderful contribution of F.W. Taylor regarding the performance of employees, regarding the selection of employees, and then of course there is always a one best way. So we have discussed all the results of shoveling experiment performed by F.W. Taylor in this slide. Okay, the next contributor when we talk about classical school of thought is Henry L. Gantt. Now Gantt also belongs to the classical school because he was also trying to focus on efficiency and maximization of output. So we have already talked about efficiency, and we have already talked about the maximization of output. He emphasized the need for developing mutuality of interest between management and labor, which mean a harmonious cooperation between both. So Henry L. Gantt, he talked about and he emphasized on building good relations between the management and the labor. So he focused on having harmonious cooperations between the labor and the management. So this is really very important. As we always say that human resource is the most important asset of any organization. So when we say that human resource is the most important asset of any organization, it also means that we need to take care this most important resource. So if you are not taking best care of your human resource, so you cannot retain that human resource. You cannot keep that good human resource, because if you do something bad with your good human resource, that human resource may leave you. So that is why Henry L. Gantt talked about the importance of relations between the management and the labor. So by saying this thing, he meant that we need to do something which increases, which strengthens the relationship between management and the labor, and that is possible when they sit together, when they respect each other, when they have when they respect each other's values, and when they follow the targets, and when things like that. So when the top management, they take care of their financial and non-financial needs of their employees. So when the top management creates a supportive environment, and that supportive environment can result in better relations of labor and top management. Now the next, Henry N. Gantt, he talked about in all problems of management, the human element is the most important. Now, in any kind of problem. Now, when we talk about problem, one thing that quickly comes in my mind is problem is not a problem. The way we see the problem is the real problem. So Henry L. Gantt talked about our perceptions. He talked about the human element when he talked about problems. So in order to solve any kind of problems in management or in any situation, what is required here is that we need to improve the way we look at problems. And that is only possible when we have better, good relations with our employees. And when the top management and the low management and the middle management, when all the levels of management, they have strong relations with each other, of course they have a positive mindset, they have a positive perception. So all are willing to solve the problem in a positive manner. So that perception is required, that attitude is required, that behavior is positive behavior is required, and that is only possible when we start respecting, and when we start focusing, when we start giving our much attention to the human element. Then Henry L. Gantt talks about the importance of time as well as cost in planning and controlling work. So Henry L. Gantt talked about time management. Now about time, I always say one thing, that the good news is, so there is a good news, there is a bad news. So I will start from the bad news. The bad news is time flies. वक्त पर लगा के उड़ जाता है. The bad news is वक्त पर लगा के उड़ जाता है. What is the good news here? The good news is you are the pilot. Now, if you manage your time well, and if you are able to do that time management thing, so of course you can achieve your targets in time, you are highly organized, and you know when to do what, things like that. So we need to develop a list of activities every day in our offices. Like for example, as a student, do you prepare that list of activities like for example, what I need to do today? क्या आज आपने कोई अपनी activity list बनाई हुई है? Mostly students, what they do is in their brains they store that list of activities कि आज मैंने ये करना है, सुबह मैंने ये करना है, शाम को मैंने ये करना है, रात तक मैंने ये करना है, आज का मेरा क्या प्लान है, इस तरह की चीज़ें. बट यहाँ पे मैं आपको सजेस्ट करना चाहूँगा तमाम स्टूडेंट्स को कि आप अपनी एक रिटन लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ बनाएं. उसके लिए यू कैन यूज़ योर मोबाइल फ़ोन्स एज वेल, जिसमें एक नोट पैड में जाके या एक किसी जगह फोल्डर बना के वहाँ पे आप अपना एक कैलेंडर के अंदर आप अपनी जो लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ हैं उनको आप स्टोर कर सकते हैं, या उसके अलावा किसी भी प्लेन पेपर के ऊपर आप अपनी लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ लिख सकते हैं. एंड देन आप अपने कंप्यूटर को जो है वहाँ पे जो डेस्कटॉप के ऊपर जो हम वॉलपेपर लगाते हैं, तो वॉलपेपर की बजाय अगर हम अपनी लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ अगर वहाँ पे उसको वहाँ पे वॉलपेपर की जगह लेके आएँ, तो डेफिनेटली जब भी आप कंप्यूटर ऑन करेंगे, जब भी आप मोबाइल ऑन करेंगे, आप देखेंगे कि वहाँ पे आपकी लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटी वहाँ पे मौजूद है, और उसको देखते ही फिर आप देखिएगा कि किस तरह से आपका एनर्जी लेवल हाई होता है. मैं अगर अपने बारे में यहाँ बात करूँगा कि मैं अपने आप को मोबाइल के अंदर मुख्तलिफ रिमाइंडर्स लगा के रखता हूँ कि कौन सा काम मैंने किस वक्त करना है, और जब वो रिमाइंडर ऑन होता है तो डेफिनेटली मेरा पूरा फोकस उस काम की तरफ हो जाता है. तो बजाय ये कि हम हाई स्ट्रेस में चले जाएं, हर चीज़ को हम याद रखने की कोशिश करें। हम ये भी कर सकते हैं कि हम ऑर्गेनाइज तरीके से, सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से हम अपनी टाइम मैनेजमेंट करें। एंड ऑफ कोर्स पीपल हु डू देयर टाइम मैनेजमेंट वेल, उनकी जो कॉस्टिंग है, उनके जो एक्सपेंस हैं, वो भी मिनिमाइज हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि जो काम आप इन टाइम कर लेते हैं, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट प्लानिंग एंड कंट्रोलिंग, जब हम वर्क प्लेस की बात करते हैं तो आपकी जो कॉस्ट सेविंग है, आपके एक्सपेंस कम हो जाते हैं विद द हेल्प ऑफ गुड टाइम मैनेजमेंट। Next, Henry and L. Gantt, he talked about, like for example, there are like, he said that this led eventually to the famous Gantt chart. So he is talking about the Gantt chart, which is basis of such modern techniques such as program evaluation and review technique, and the most, it is one of the most popular techniques, and we call it abbreviated PERT technique. The next contributor when we talk about the classical school of thought is Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. So when we talk about Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, they are the husband and wife. First thing, we should know that. The next thing is they strongly supported, both of them strongly supported the ideas of Taylor. Now Gilbreth became interested in wasted motions in work, and so Gilbreth was more interested कि कोई भी काम करते हुए आपके जो different motions हैं, उन motions के अंदर कौन से ऐसे motions हैं जो कि आपके waste हो जाते हैं, जिनकी आपको ज़रूरत नहीं होती. He observed the work of bricklayers and said that it can be reduced from 18 to 5 movements. This is really wonderful. So Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, they observed the work of bricklayers. और उनकी उन्होंने ऑब्जर्व किया, उनकी मूवमेंट्स को देखा, और उन्होंने कहा कि इनकी जो 18 मूवमेंट्स हैं, उन 18 मूवमेंट्स को हम 5 मूवमेंट्स तक लेके आ सकते हैं, क्योंकि बाकी जो 13 मूवमेंट्स हैं वो उनकी वेस्ट हो रही हैं. सो इन दिस वे कि जब आप कहते हैं कि आपकी जो मूवमेंट्स हैं, जो बॉडी मूवमेंट्स हैं किसी भी एक्टिविटी को परफॉर्म करने के लिए, उनमें से ऐसी कौन सी मूवमेंट्स हैं जो आपकी रिक्वायर्ड नहीं है, जो वेस्ट होती हैं, तो इट मीन्स दैट व्हाट वी आर डूइंग हियर, वी आर सेविंग एनर्जी, वी आर सेविंग टाइम. सो दिस इज रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि वी शुड नो दैट कि हमारी बॉडी मूवमेंट्स या हमारी फिजिकल मूवमेंट्स ऐसी कौन सी हैं जो वेस्ट हो रही हैं, ताकि हम अपनी एनर्जी को भी सेव कर सकें एंड डेफिनेटली हम अपने टाइम को भी सेव कर सकें. He met Taylor in 1907 and combined his ideas with Taylor to improve productivity of workers. So this shows again a good teamwork of Frank and Lillian Gilbreth and of course Taylor. And then Frank and Lillian Gilbreth emphasize the following. The first is application of scientific management principles, time and motion study. So here they focused on application of scientific principles, meaning that time and motion study. Okay, how we can save our time with the help of like reducing our wasted motions. Like for example, कि किसी भी काम को करने के लिए we have different body movements. उन different body movements को किस तरह से हम minimize कर सकते हैं ताकि हमारी जो activity है वो भी बेहतर तरीके से perform हो जाए और हमें एनर्जी लेवल भी हमारा उसमें कम यूज हो, और डेफिनेटली हमारा टाइम सेविंग इज रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. द नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड वर्कर्स पर्सनालिटीज एंड नीड्स. नाउ Frank and Lillian Gilbreth also emphasized on the need to understand workers' personality and needs. Now both of these philosophers or contributors of this classical school of thought, they were of the opinion that it is really very important to understand the worker personalities and needs. So once we are able to understand the personality of our workers, this is really very important. So once we understand the personality of our workers, we can do anything. We can do wonders. Like for example, when we know their attitude, when we know their behavior, when we know that what are the root causes if their performance is low, if we know that what are the root causes of their poor performance, and when we know about their real needs, so of course knowing about their real need can help the organization to ensure that when those needs are fulfilled, the employee will start performing his or her best level. So when we talk about need identification, I think this is the key here, that everybody has needs. So in any organization, employees are working, and those employees have different personalities and different needs. So any organization which is able to identify correctly the real personalities of its employees and needs. So when we talk about needs, what comes in your mind? Okay, what are the different possible needs of employees? Yeah, what are your needs? Now, when we talk about needs, of course, we need to have, like, for example, in order to survive in this world, what we need to have food and water. Then we need to have, our protection. Then we need to have our socialization. We need to have a family and friends. And then we need to have, like, for example, a better place to live, a better job, things like that. And then we need to have inner satisfaction. And inner satisfaction is only possible when we are working for the welfare of others. So when you look at the hierarchy of needs, okay, I repeat, what comes first? आप अगर अपने बारे में सोचें कि सबसे पहले आपको क्या चीज़ चाहिए, सबसे पहले आपको you need food and water. Without food and water, nobody can survive. Without oxygen, nobody can survive. So these are called your physiological needs, right? And this hierarchy of need is given by Abraham Maslow. I repeat, Abraham Maslow has given the needs hierarchy. And I am talking about that need hierarchy of employees. कि employees किसी चीज़ के बारे में जब उन्होंने कोई डिसीजन लेना होता है, या उनका जो मोटिवेशन लेवल है वो किस तरह अप होता है या किस तरह डिक्लाइन होता है. तो इफ एम्प्लॉयर्स आर एबल टू करेक्टली आइडेंटिफाई द नीड्स ऑफ employees, so they are able to motivate their employees, and once they are able to motivate their employees, they can perform the best. Okay, now coming back to the needs hierarchy given by Abraham Maslow, the first one is the physiological. Now physiological means that your food and water, things like that, without which nobody can survive. So once you are able to fulfill your needs of food and water, then the next higher level is you need to have protection, you need to have safety. So and once you have that protection and safety, the next need is the social need. You need to have a family, you need to have friends, because in this world nobody can live alone. So of course we need to have a family, we need to have friends. So once you have needs, fulfill the needs of family and friends, then you move on to the next need level, that is called self-esteem. Now self-esteem means that we need to have a better lifestyle, we need to have a better home, we need to have a better facilities available to us, things like that. So after fulfilling self-esteem need, what the next level is self-actualization. According to Abraham Maslow, when people start working for the welfare of others, when they think that we should do something for the betterment, for the improvement of others, like doing something for others without any objective in your mind, like for example without any financial gain. So this self-actualization results in your inner satisfaction in most cases. So this is really very important, that according to Abraham Maslow, the employees goes through these stages. Now when we talk about employee motivation here, according to Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, this is really very important, that once we are able to identify the need level, then of course we can, by providing that identified need, and once we are able to identify and provide the correct need to our employees, of course we can achieve the best performance out of him or her. So this is really very important. So this needs hierarchy is a wonderful thing, and it can help us to do something to bring out the best from our employees. Now here we conclude our today's lecture, and before I conclude, I need to give you a brief summary that what we have discussed in our today's lecture. So in our today's lecture we talked about different concepts. We talked about different like articles relating to the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. We have talked about different issues faced by Pakistanis in different organizations. We have talked about different articles, as I have already mentioned that, and then we have talked about different schools of thought, and today we have discussed about the classical school of thought. And in this classical school of thought we have talked about different philosophers, and those different philosophers, randomly I'll take their names, like for example Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. We have talked about F.W. Taylor. We have talked about some other contributors of classical school of thought. So this was really, I believe, that a wonderful experience with all of you. I hope that you have learned a lot from today's lecture. Okay, I also advise you that you kindly again go through this lecture and try to understand the concepts, and then try to understand whatever I have told you during this lecture, and then kindly please relate whatever I have told you in this lecture with your practical experiences. This is really very important, because theory without practice, I think that creates more problem. So this is really very important. So whatever we learn here, if we start observing that thing as well, so of course our learning is much higher. Or once you observe something, once you relate theory with practice, तो उसको आपको याद करने की ज़रूरत नहीं होती, बल्कि उसको understand करने के बाद that goes in your mind, that stays there, and that of course improves your performance as a student as well. Okay, we have talked about different contributors of classical school of thought. Now, thank you very much for your kind attention. I believe that all of you have learned a lot through this today's lecture. Now, again, I repeat one thing, that you need to relate theory with practice. So whatever you have learned in this lecture today, open different newspapers, when you watch different news on television, when you listen to radio, or when you work on internet, so try to like learn from different practical situations and relate this theory with practice, and in this way you are able to learn more, you are able to understand more. Thank you very much all of you. God bless you. Thank you very much.